Hello, welcome back to Shok's Talks. I'm Shakti, and today I'm going to share my thoughts and feelings about the new documentary that was just released last night, November 21st, 2025, The Age of Disclosure. If you're new to the channel, thank you so much for checking out my content. I cover anomalous phenomena, starting with UFO, UAP history, and then branching out into psi phenomena like remote viewing, consciousness studies, and all things paranormal. I like to read a lot of books and watch a lot of documentaries and podcasts, and I've gone to a couple different conferences, including Contact in the Desert and the Psi Games. So this is just my fun, this is my passion. I have a great job that has nothing to do with this. I work in arts and entertainment, and I'm also an artist and an experiencer. So today's episode is going to be a little bit casual because the information is in the documentary. So if you want to see what's in there, I want you to watch it. But I'm going to talk about my impressions of it, how it relates to the story that I've been following all these years and the research that I've done, and some advice for people who are new to this topic, because I do think there are some moments throughout this piece that could stir up some emotions that might not be useful to our progress. So let's get right into it. Right now I'm just looking up the cast because I wanted to let you guys know who's in this thing. So the documentary was created by Dan Farah, that's Farah with one R, and it features a lot of old white men, to be honest, but let's go through some of the names. We have Tim Burchett, we have Eric Davis, Lou Elizondo, Tim Gallaudet. Anna Paulina Luna does make a little cameo. Harold Putoff, Mike Rounds, Marco Rubio, Jim Semivan, Jay Stratton, and there are others too. But I just wanted to read off some of the names that you might have heard on this channel if you've been following my work already. So this documentary, in my opinion, could function as a really good onboarding to this topic for those kinds of people who are so, I mean this with love in my heart, but so narrow-minded and brainwashed. You know, our consciousness can be shaped. That is something that happens in reality, and we know that that is something that some groups do to us for a certain purpose. So yes, we're living in a reality where there are systems of power and control, and somebody is benefiting from us being in the dark, you know? So whenever you're getting into this topic, you have to think about where you're at in your own journey of breaking free from systems of control. So if you're already way out there, if you're really in tune with your intuition, if you have an open and skeptical mind, if you are balancing the emotional and the rational, and you're living in this world, and you're grounded in your day-to-day experience, you're good to go. You know what I mean? But if you're too far in either direction, whether it is just believing what has been presented to you and feeling very, very rooted in the status quo, or you're so far off the deep end of the anomalous phenomena that you're super ungrounded, we got to bring those things together, get you back in the middle, because that's the only place that you can study this topic from and actually make progress with it. This is my opinion, but I feel like it is backed in experience and observation, so take it for what it's worth, you know? So back to this documentary. What I think it could do is it could open up the conversation for people who have been really hard skeptics and who feel emotionally disturbed by the content of this topic. So, for example, people who have a lot of faith in government and who are very respectful of the systems that have ruled for all these years, those kinds of people might feel like this is an entry point for them, because you're going to hear from a lot of credible top scientists and researchers and intelligence agency officers and military personnel. But if you're studying this topic, you've already heard from all those people. So there's a lot of talk about credible witnesses versus not credible witnesses. When you are in touch with your own inner knowing and you can assess what's in front of you with some degree of accuracy, you're not as concerned with, is this witness quote unquote credible or not? Because you have your own little, what I like to call, bullshit meter. And you can tell what's in front of you. And so whether it's coming from a civilian or somebody on TikTok or somebody from the military or Air Force or somebody from high up in government, just the fact that they have a character or a title, that is not what we're interested in here. We're looking a layer deeper. We're assessing what they are saying and how it makes us feel and how it fits into our bigger picture understanding that is based on research, you know? So for me, as I go through a documentary like this, I feel myself getting stirred up at different moments and having my little conspiracy theories kind of bubble up and then bubble back down, like, oh, this person is an actor. Oh, that person is a disinformation agent. Oh, they're just being played. They don't even know. You know, your mind is going to go in all these different directions because your consciousness is linking into a consciousness topic where a lot of different minds are chewing on this topic. And so when you tap into it, you kind of connect to all of those minds. And so you're going to get pulled by the ocean of energy that is this topic. And so you have to be really, really strong and really resilient to like move through it, because you can just get washed away out to sea or just kind of like thrashed against the rocks if you're not careful. There's a lot of emotion and energy here. And the reason I'm speaking about it like this is because right now I'm really interested in remote viewing. And so I am very much tapping into the energy of information in this reality, because that's what remote viewing is all about. So if you're new to remote viewing, go check out my remote viewing playlist and you can learn about what it is and the history and some of my own experiences with it and books that I've read about it. If you already know all about it and you haven't started practicing for yourself, I do highly recommend signing up for this website, social-rv.com. This is a place where you can get your own blind targets to practice remote viewing, but I'm not going to describe what it is now because I'm assuming that most of you already know. So if you don't know, I'll just give a quick synopsis, like a really, really concise synopsis. It's accessing data remotely using your consciousness. A psi ability, kind of like being psychic, you could say. But there's a protocol and a system. It's a specific version of accessing data. So I was doing a session the other day, and I'm on about 88 or 89 sessions now. And I felt really good at the beginning, like I was making a lot of progress, and then I had some kind of really bad sessions, and that's just the nature of the game. It's hit or miss. Sometimes you make contact with the target, other times you don't. But as time goes on, I have started to pick up momentum again, and I had some really cool sessions recently. And something that I noticed and then remembered that I had heard before is that sometimes certain targets have almost like a louder energy around them that makes them easier to access. And so, for example, if it has like something explosive going on, or there's an element of violence even, or just a lot of energy, sometimes it makes it easier to make contact with that target versus like a still from a movie, for example. That one I couldn't get at all. It was like nothing. Like I couldn't grab onto it. I couldn't access it at all. So the reason I bring that up is because the UFO topic has a lot of energy. And so when you are tapping into it with your own consciousness, you're kind of swimming through the layers of it, you know, all the different minds that are tapped into it, plugged into it. You're kind of connecting to that also. So let's talk about what kinds of minds are tapped into this topic. I'm just going to kind of ramble off generally who I think are the main players in this realm of UFO, UAP history, and reverse engineering of anomalous tech and also anomalous experiences. So the categories include regular people who have had their own experiences, people in the military or in intelligence agencies or secret programs who have either had their own experiences or somehow accessed information about other people's experiences. You have the researchers. Those are people who are just approaching it because they are curious and that's what their soul's path is to study and learn and share information and organize information. And maybe they're coming from a little more neutral place. And I would say you have probably a lot of creatives also tapping into this because, you know, we have sci-fi as a genre of storytelling in our culture, and we've always had fairy tales and myth, and surprise, surprise, that actually has a big part in all of this. And you know this if you've looked into like Jacques Vallée at all, but it's a really interesting aspect of this. There's something mythological and almost magical about this topic. And then you have your sort of tangent topics of people who are studying psi and any kind of paranormal or anomalous phenomena and researching things like telepathy and telekinesis or energy work or healing work. So, and then I would say like that also includes kind of the spiritual, but you can already see like what a wide spread of like areas of interest are all converging when it comes to the topic of UFO and UAP. So in this documentary, The Age of Disclosure, it's really narrowed in on the perspective of folks in the government, whistleblowers who have spoken to Congress, scientists who are working closely with these people in government or private companies that are reverse engineering technology. And so you have a lot of like a political angle here. And the basic story is like, first you hear from all these people, basically all these credible witnesses or whatever, saying like, it's real, it's real, it's real. Aliens are here, visitors are here, UFOs are real. And then you hear about the cover up, like, not only is this real, but it's been going on for 80 plus years. And that's kind of an interesting story if you don't know it already. Like, different people come to it in different ways, but in this documentary, you kind of hear Lou Elizondo's version of it, which is like, I was tasked with being a part of this secret program. We took our job seriously. We tried to study this thing. Then once we got deeper into it, nobody would give us any answers. Then come to find out, we uncovered that there's a legacy program that's been going on for like 80 years, and they wouldn't give us any answers, but they had a lot of information and we couldn't access it, and they're operating without oversight, and this might be a threat to national security. Not just them, I mean, that could be a threat to national security, but the UFOs and the UAP themselves. So that's kind of the angle, but you got to stop and take a deep breath when you're in that part of this documentary if you're new to this, because they ramp up the emotion. And there are these moments as you go through learning about this where you have your paradigm is shattered again and again. And it's a gorgeous process, but it's kind of intense. So if you're the kind of person who is starting to hear about this and you have like a fighting spirit and you care about people and you want to protect the American people, you could be really activated when you see this, because the angle that Lou Elizondo is coming from and some of the others is like, oh my God, this is our right to know, our need to know, but also like, this is scary and dangerous, and like, we're in danger because they're more powerful than us. And then you could just freak out and panic and have a knee-jerk reaction and feel like, we gotta mobilize against these UFOs. But if you have been looking at this for a long time, it's like, dude, okay, they've been here for maybe forever. And yes, things are happening. And yes, sometimes there are dangers to people that are operating in the skies that encounter something that they didn't know was there and they don't have control over. But guess what? You don't have control over everything. Humans, You don't own the skies. Even though you say that you do, this is my airspace, this is your airspace. That's not reality. There's other stuff out there, and we're in it with them. And guess what? They're more powerful than us. But so far, nothing super drastic has occurred as a result of them being here. It's kind of like humans have such a crazy attitude about things in reality that we are this apex being on this planet and we deserve this ultimate sense of safety. Life isn't safe. We're not safe. We're you could say, like, we're never safe. You know what I mean? Things are happening all the time. You can get diseases. You could get into a car accident. You're definitely gonna die. That's a guarantee. You know, you go out in the ocean, there's gonna be creatures there. Some of them might want to eat you. A lot of them don't. The ones that do want to eat you, they're not going to eat you every single time, but sometimes they might. You know, you go into the forest, you might encounter a bear. Sometimes that bear is going to run away. Other times it's going to make you its meal. You know what I mean? So we here on the planet Earth, we have a false sense of safety to begin with because of the way that we have sectioned ourselves off from all other life forms. We have created this insane separation that is actually leading to a lot of the problems of the planet. And this is where we get into this larger consciousness conversation. And by the way, season 2 of the telepathy tapes is out now, and it's pretty good. I'm really loving it. But they're talking about like plant communication and animal communication and the way that indigenous cultures have always recognized and embodied the interconnectedness of everything in reality. Like there's a foundational awareness of that, a respect, and therefore a completely different way of operating. This modern, materialist, scientific, Western mind has created this false sense of safety and separation from everything. And this kind of interdimensional or alien phenomena is just one other example of how we've separated ourselves from the truth. We pretend that they don't exist, and we raise every generation with the awareness that all of that is fantasy and fiction and fairy tale, and that none of that stuff is real, and that people who talk about it are crazy. But again, back to some other versions of human culture. You know, there's lots of different pockets of human culture that don't live like that and do recognize the interconnectedness of reality and also have their own awareness of beings who are non-human, both physical and non-physical. So part of the documentary does summarize the scope or the breadth of this phenomena and what we're dealing with. And I can't remember who it was, which man was talking about it, because there's a lot of men. There were only like 2 women featured, I feel like. One of them was one of the pilots who encountered the anomalous objects in the airspace, and the other was Anna Paulina Luna. I can't even remember if I saw any other women or people who are not cis men in the documentary, but I mean, it's okay. We have to remember that we do still live in a mostly patriarchal reality, and that's another thing that we need to work on as a species. But because of that, a lot of people can only hear the truth from those kinds of folks. Like, they're not going to hear it if it comes from somebody like me. I mean, who am I anyway? But there's so many other people out there speaking about the truth, and it's not going to matter to a certain kind of mind because they have to hear it from what they deem an authority, and what they deem an authority is based in how they've been programmed. So we've got a lot of work to do. We have to break out of our own shells of illusion. We have to allow ourselves to have many ego deaths along the way. We have to shift the paradigm within in order to see a greater paradigm shift without. And what I would like to see, what that looks like to me, is first we tap into the truth of where we're at. That's the ugly part. That's the really painful part. Like, oh my God, I've been lied to. All these things are going on right underneath the surface of reality. Whoa, the powers that be are super obsessed with control and money, and it's disgusting and it's scary and it's crazy, and like, oh my God, there's these things here that are way more powerful than us. What if they want to eat me? What if they want to destroy me? And that's a whole scary thing too. Like, you will freak out if you actually tap into the truth of what's out there, because there's a scary aspect to it. Just like if you came face to face with a shark, you would be scared. You should be scared. But like I said, that shark's not going to eat you every single time. There's a girl out there posting videos about how she swims with sharks, and it's crazy, but it's kind of cool. It's just, we have to come to terms with our own limitations and our own mortality. But what's exciting is that we're not really that limited, because then the deeper in you go, the more you recognize, like, wait a second, this whole reality is kind of virtual in a sense. It's kind of an illusion, just like the Buddha said, just like the Vedas were teaching us, just like all these other religions and spiritual traditions have taught us. And actually, everything has consciousness and spirit, even the inanimate objects here, but especially the plants and the animals. And because we also are consciousness and we're all in this consciousness system, we're netted. So the barriers that I thought were limiting me are actually false. They're just concepts. And once I start to dissolve those concepts, the barriers crumble. And then I have access to information. I have access to all information. And I have direct access. I don't need a government to tell me what's going on. I don't need to trust or not trust anyone. But it is fun to follow along and see what's happening. So I think in this documentary, as with most content that covers the topic, there's a mixture of intentions present. And even some of the folks that are speaking with a very pure and loving intent still have a limited understanding, and all of them are being brought together and edited together in a structure that might be a little more controlled and deliberate. But overall, I felt like this had an 80% positive intent behind it. So I do think that this was a pretty good documentary. I do think that there were some cheesy moments. I do think that the beautiful orchestral score was interesting, but a little bit sensational at times. When you're getting into the scary parts of the topic, we do not need to amp up the entertainment value here. This is a really serious thing that we should be taking our time to study and moving through carefully. And when you start to swell, the orchestra swells and everything gets really and you can feel your heart racing and your nerves are tingling. That's not a great place to be operating from. It's entertaining, but it's hard on the system. It's not good for people to be scared about this. We can't make healthy, clear decisions from a place of fear and panic. Sometimes you need a little bit of that energy to kind of activate and motivate and break out of those illusions like we talked about earlier. So a little bit of that energy, I think, has a place in this. Sometimes you do have to get a little scared in order to kind of break on to the next level. But you always have to bring it back, come back to center, and really look around you and say, you know what, even if this has been going on for 80 years, most of us didn't even know about it. The world is still turning. I still have to pay my bills. There are people in front of me who need my attention and my care more than this topic. So you kind of have to toggle back and forth. But what I'm hoping will happen over time is that enough of us will have a clear enough understanding of this that it will be one data point that helps to inform the ways in which we shape our future. And there's a lot of exciting potential here. Number one, the technology itself. Obviously, it's in the hands of the military-industrial complex right now, and it's in the hands of private companies. And most of the time, unfortunately, all of the good stuff that humanity discovers now is kept secret so that it can be filtered through the systems of power and control. So there's this potential for us to unlock, for example, people talk about free energy or better sources of energy that would allow us to step away from fossil fuels and potentially help to save our planet. And that would be incredible, and that would be a powerful application of some of what might come out of this topic and this study. But what are the chances that that's going to happen? There's already cures for diseases that we don't have access to. There's already technologies that could make everyone's lives better that we don't all have access to. There's a real problem here of the soul of humanity, because while a lot of us we're just here living our lives, having our experience, doing the best we can, there's like this little cohort of this kind of evil disease of the soul somewhere here on the planet that is twisted and lost and confused. And so we're going to have a hard time moving forward while they cling to the power and control, you know? So that's why we always end up in the spiritual end of this topic, which is like, well, then how do you get those people to care? How do you get those people to change and to be more focused on love? And the truth is, you may or may not have any control over those people. So then you just got to turn it back on yourself. Where am I harboring within me any of that greed and fear? Where am I clinging to power? Where am I expressing any of that energy? And how can I bring that into balance within myself? And, you know, we're not trying to be saints here. We're here to experience and to learn. So maybe all of this just has a place, and that's the nature of this game, and evil's part of it. Maybe that's what we're dealing with here. And then you're just like, well, guess it's time to go clean my room then. There's not a whole lot left to do. Time to just keep on living, you know. But there's some cool changes that we could make. There's a lot of problems in the world. And I do think that like studying this topic is an interesting way to learn about where you want to put your energy in reality and how you want to be influential. And it's also just fun, and it's a great mystery to unravel. So I myself have had some really extreme and life-altering anomalous experiences in my time. And there are some deep mysteries within my own personal story that I'm still unraveling. And they've been with me for my entire life, like since the very beginning. And I may or may not ever get all the answers, but something about that, like I'm constantly chewing on these questions in the back of my mind. What did this mean? What was that about? How do all these things connect? And there have been times when that has gotten so out of control that I could barely function in reality, and I had to kind of set it aside for a little while and just focus on what's in front of me, focus on just being successful in this materialistic reality. And that's also been good, but I've really enjoyed finding the balance, and that's why I make this channel, because it's a fun outlet for me to keep on. It kind of gives me an excuse and a reason to continue studying these things, and I just love talking about it because it helps me make sense of it over time. I think that towards the end of this documentary, you know, what you really start to kind of get into is some of the political stuff that's going on in terms of like whistleblower protections and getting more information to Congress and getting more oversight over these secret programs. And I do think there are a lot of really good people working on that specific goal within the community. And I think that that's a noble goal, and it is an important piece of the puzzle. But ultimately, these programs, they are full of humans. They are full of individual humans who are making choices. So one choice leads to another, you know? And it's like the minute you choose to enter into one of those programs, then you have another new set of choices in front of you. you do the work for however many years and they tell you that you can't tell anyone, and you start to see things that you start to realize have major implications, but you're still under these NDAs. And so that's where the whistleblower protections really do seem to come into play, is like we have to look at the systems as they are, and we have to create better pathways for people to come forward and share the information that they have. That's one aspect of what's going on. Another thing that might be going on, let's say, I said I think this has like 80% positive intention, and maybe there's a little weirdness mixed in, because there's always a little weirdness mixed in. But let's say that this documentary and things like it are part of a process of unveiling new technologies. So like, it's exciting to imagine that we could unveil new technologies that would help everyone, but sadly what's probable is that the main thing that people are trying to push out into reality right now is the technology that allows the anomalous craft to operate in the ways that they do. Crazy speeds that are faster than anything that we have right now. The ability to, they talk about this bubble. This is the part that scared me about the documentary. They start to talk about the way the craft work, and it's almost like they're really laying it out for us. They're like, there's this bubble of, I don't know what it is, some kind of energy that makes things different inside the bubble from outside. And so that's why time is different inside versus outside. That's why size can be different inside versus outside. And that's why the craft can move through reality almost like a surfer on the waves. They're kind of flowing, but they're in this protected bubble of energy. And that's what allows them to do this transmedium stuff, like going from space to the atmosphere to the water. I mean, even going through walls or going through mountains. So they kind of give like a really like UFOs for dummies kind of explanation of the tech, and I couldn't tell you what it is. I can't understand all of that, and they're obviously not offering us up that understanding, but they're trying to give us enough of an explanation that maybe that they can unveil this tech for the world. But what good is that going to do? It's like nuclear weapons, It's like, cool, we all have now we can all blow up the planet. Great. That how far, like, what did that do for us? How is that really helping us, So I'm a little bit afraid that they're just going to unveil a new technology that has no real implications for regular people, but is another tool of the theater of war, as they called it in this documentary. So I did definitely feel that they're gearing up for that, and that's kind of a letdown, but not a surprise. And we have to stay strong and take heart in the fact that there's this whole other side to the topic that is even more powerful than the hard material technologies that can be derived from understanding a little bit more about this phenomena, and that is consciousness. So I'm really into the human technologies and capabilities, which is why I do highly recommend season 2 of the telepathy tapes. If you haven't started watching the telepathy tapes yet, you should start at the beginning and take the whole journey. The most interesting thing to me right now about all of this stuff is, what can I do with my own consciousness? And the things that I would love to see for all of us, like even if the powers that be never give us the stuff that they have, they never release the tech that's just going to make everyone's lives better because they're evil, like if that never happens, we can still develop our own capabilities to help ourselves and each other. And I'm talking about like healing, energy healing, for example. How great would it be if we could all meditate with our food, and no matter what we had available to us on any given day, whether it was clean or dirty water, whether it was the most nutritious organic vegetable or a can of corn, we could take our energy, because we understand that all of this stuff is just information in an information system, and we are consciousness and we have the power to influence it. And we could imbue that object with so much nutritious energy and benefit, and then we could consume it with love and gratitude, and then our body could feel that and do something really cool with it. And we're so resilient, we are so adaptable. Our bodies could eliminate what is not good and keep what is. And just like ancient yogis, we can even just use our breath to fill ourselves up with like nutritious energy. Sunlight and nature could help to heal us, just like people in indigenous cultures have been doing for all of history. And that's one aspect. So that's like a practical application of some of this, what seems like more woo-woo if you've been brainwashed to believe that it is. But if you actually understand reality, it's like, oh, that is my birthright as a human on the earth. I have access to energy, and I can use that in positive ways for myself and for others. You could use that energy to move through reality, to help you in your job. You could use your intuition and your telepathic skills to deepen connection and have more fulfilling life experiences. We could start to heal some of the psychological wounding that has occurred in our recent history as a result of this splitting off of ourselves from all that is around us. We could start to heal that and reintegrate into larger systems, humbly and lovingly. And we could use that intuition and that telepathic ability to access information directly. And that information could inform the way that we participate in reality, whether it's on a political level or just in the day-to-day. It could help us to make decisions about who we want to be around and what we want to do to make changes here. It could help us to understand who we really want to vote for and whether or not, ooh, somebody just honked a horn outside, and whether or not systems of government are even working for us as they are. Like if we need to make changes to that stuff, having these skills could really help us to transform reality in beautiful ways. And then we could understand that, like, as these little units of this larger picture, we are like cells in a body. The body is humanity on the earth, and the body needs healing. And so we all need to organize in groups to create bigger changes. So more groups of people could come together to innovate outside of those systems of power and control. We could start scientific research groups that are not based in the academic tradition that is so heavily influenced by these higher up powers. There's a lot of greed and money and control that has infiltrated not only government and private companies, but even academia. And that's a problem, because we could create better education systems for everybody, where from the beginning of our lives, children are learning love and respect and compassion and interconnectedness. They're learning multiple languages, including telepathy. They're learning healing skills and ways to just take care of their own physical vessel. And they're also learning to leave their physical vessel through out-of-body experiences and meditation, and to have more experiences and then come back here and use those experiences to have a greater impact on this reality that we're all co-creating together. So I just think there is a lot of potential, but the only way that we can get closer to those possible futures is by doing our own internal work as individuals, and just continuing to wake up every day and say, okay, what can I do today to learn and grow? How can I face what's in front of me with love and courage in my heart? How can I collaborate with others to do something that is more than I could just do alone? These are the things that really excite me. So I know that was a lot of my feelings and not a lot about what was in the documentary, but that's what I told you were going to get at the beginning of this episode. I do think it's worth watching. Take it with a grain of salt, as everything. And thank you so much for being here with me today. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to my content. I really do hope that you go through some of my playlists and check out some of the other episodes. and you could always give me a thumbs up or subscribe to the channel. I post some little short things on TikTok, and I always put all of the information and links in the description box below, so make sure to check that out if you want to like branch off and do your own research. I'm also thinking that I'm going to start covering some sci-fi. I think I've talked about this before, but I haven't gotten into it yet. But I think I'm feeling really drawn to stories right now. And I think there's a lot of truth in stories. And I think that just the way Tom Campbell talks about accessing different reality frames, imagination is another reality frame. And it's well worth our time to spend time and energy in the imaginal realms. And so I'm going to start reading some science fiction novels. I think I'm going to start with, it's Octavia Butler. I think it's called Xeno something. Let me see. Xenogenesis. My friend recommended it. It's a series. We're going to start it next week. So if you want to read along with me, get the first book in Xenogenesis. It starts with an X. And we'll be talking about that in the near future. Just for funsies. I'm reading a lot of like fantasy, romantasy novels right now for escape. I'm always going back and forth between fiction and nonfiction, research and pleasure, and just trying to maintain that balance. You know, there's truth in everything and there's beauty in everything, and it's up to us to find it. So have a great one, and I'll see you next time on Shocks Talks.